everyone, welcome back to Brewbound's continuing coverage of how the beer industry is navigating the crisis caused by the novel coronavirus disease, COVID-19. My name is Justin Kindle, and I am the editor of Brewbound, and I am still in my studio apartment, social distancing with my dog. He's social distancing from me right now. So I'm joined today by Cheryl Hanses Smith and Mike Smith, owners of Loftus Farms and founders of the Ales for ALS program, as well as Megan Quinn, co-owner of the Bell Breaker Brewery in Washington State. Hey, everyone. How you guys doing? How you guys holding up?
Good.
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Well, weather's starting to get nice here in Yakima, so that's
and you get to stay inside. So,
well, luckily we have lots of space on the farm to roam 6 feet apart. So
that's nice. Then that beats the concrete slab I share with a neighbor, and I'm not sharing that right now with them. I'm just hiding indoors. So
that's gotta be rough.
So before we get started here, I want to ask you, Cheryl, about a little bit of the backstory of the Ales for ALS program, and just you have a very personal tie to this program. So could you explain how you guys got started?
Sure. So I think most people are familiar with ALS because of the Ice Bucket Challenge from a few years ago. So my dad's family has a familial form of ALS, which 90% of ALS is sporadic. So we fall into that small category that actually has a genetic component. So my grandfather died in 1957. 30 years later, my dad was diagnosed. At that point, the family realized it was a genetic thing. In the next 30 years, 5 more of his siblings died of ALS, which left 25 cousins at my generation with a 50% chance of getting the disease. So in 2011, my brother was diagnosed, my older brother. And that was when, as a family, we decided that we really needed to do something. There was not a lot of research, there was no treatment and no cure for the disease. So we partnered with ALS TDI. And in 2013, when the brewery was opening, as a family, we just kind of came up with this idea to partner with our friends, our hop-knowing friends, and our great brewing friends to come up with a way of raising money to promote the research. So Megan, our daughter at the brewery, she came up with the idea of the name. She thought that as a way just in the brewery, wouldn't it be cool? Ales for ALS seemed like a neat name. And so then we got to talking, and I threw it over here to him and said, what can we do to engage our partners in the hop industry and the brewing industry and make this bigger than just our brewery? So Mike can kind of go from there with what we came up with.
Well, it started in 2013. And so during hop harvest, we get a lot of brewers coming out to visit us out to the farm. We just opened the brewery, and so we were getting a lot of traffic through the brewery as well. And a couple of our really close friends in the brewing industry, John Mallett from Bell's and Vinny Chirluzzo.
Never say his name.
I just talked to Vinny the other day too, and I asked him how to pronounce his last name. But anyway, they were out on the farm, and we'd come up with an idea of creating a special blend of hops that we could then give to brewers free of charge in exchange for them donating $1 per pint of beer sold. And Vinny and I had kind of worked this out of how that would work. It needed to be sold in the best case scenario over the bar at the brewery where the margins were the highest, of course. And so we decided to come up with a blend of hops, and we figured that we'd grab some of the more exciting hops that were available around, commercially available around, and then mix with that a few varieties from the experimental plantings that we had. And so that first year, Vinny and John were over at the farm, and I just went and got a bunch of different hop samples of different hops that we had picked during harvest, set them out. Those guys did a rub and sniff, and they just came up with a blend of, I don't recall exactly what the blend was, but it was like 20% Simcoe, 15% something else, a few experimental varieties. And we decided to make up a blend. We owned part of Yakima Chief Hops. At that time, it was a hop union. But anyway, we had them do the pelletization, and then they did the shipping. And so that way we could get all of that. We could get hops to brewers free of charge. So that first year, we sent out an email invitation to about 100 brewers that we knew, and I explained the program, explained what we were trying to do with the with funds that would be raised. And we ended up with 31 brewers that participated that first year. And we raised through that first effort, I think it was around $115,000 that very first year. And we had the greatest brewers jump on board. A lot of really good friends of ours, but New Belgium, Stone, Sierra Nevada, Brooklyn, Odell, on and on. So of that 31, 25 were kind of we're the who's who of brewing. Balebreaker, of course, had just gotten started. So anyway, so that program, the next year we did the same thing, came up with another blend, invited a few more brewers to help design the blend, sent it out, and we ended up with more, of course, participating brewers the second year. Clear up till last year, 2019, I think we ended up at 196 brewers, and we raised so far $540,000.
Wow.
So over
that was just last year. Over the entire life of the program, we've raised
over $3 million. And all of that's went directly to ALS Therapy Development Institute, which is a nonprofit biotech firm that was headquartered in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I don't know, we'll get into some of the other details, but this COVID-19 is unfortunate for a lot of reasons, but it's really unfortunate as it relates to ALS for ALS and our fundraising efforts for ALS TDI.
So set up this year for me. How many brewers are involved in the 2020 program right now?
We were just in enrollment, so we didn't go out and we don't typically go out and start enrolling brewers until February. So we did the blend selection last year at the Sierra Nevada Fall Festival. They have a fresh, wet and wild festival. And so we went out there, grabbed a few of our brewing friends that were participants were there at the festival. And so there was probably 12 or 13 brewers that did a selection. And we put all that together. We increased the quantity this year. Every year we've been increasing the quantity available. And we were up to, I think, 11,000 pounds of hops that were going to be donated free of charge.
Oh, wow.
And so our target, actually, because we've had so much interest, the program's been just growing on its own every year. We had so much interest. Our target was close to 300 brewers this year. And wow. we had already enrolled, I think the other day I was talking to him, it was like 125 or something like that. So we were on pace to actually enroll more brewers than we had in the past. And the pace was quicker. In other words, by the time I talked to him the other day, before this COVID-19 had taken full, force, we were ahead of schedule. In other words, we'd enrolled more brewers than we had at other years by the same amount of time.
So we're in a situation now because of COVID-19 that the entire on-premise is shut down. Virtually all of the on-premise is shut down. The on-premise, these brewery taprooms, you had mentioned that the best way to sell this beer was over the bar, high margin, and I'm guessing, and I believe Megan told me that that this is primarily a draft product for these brewers to raise money on. Is that correct, Megan?
Totally. Yeah. We usually brew. We have a 30-barrel brew house here at Balebreaker, and we usually brew a 30-barrel batch each year. All draft, and sell the majority of it in our tap room. To even, sell a keg wholesale or self-distribution, the price that we have to charge in order to make the donation make sense just it doesn't, I mean, you're donating basically $120 a keg. So, to sell that at wholesale is really difficult. So you really just need to make the sales over the counter. And here at Bale Breaker, our biggest day of the year is a big party that we throw. It's usually, this year it's scheduled for June 26th. Then we have tons of food trucks, live music. It's a free event, so we don't ticket it, so we don't know exactly how many people show up, but we figure it's between 1,000 to 2,000 people come that day to come hang out and support the program. We release our beer that day, and it's our biggest day of the year, but now it's completely up in the air on whether or not we're going to be able to do it again this year. But on that, generally, Bale Breaker will raise both from the beer that we brew, and then the donation that comes off the beer that we brew, and then the just personal donations that people make because they want to support us. What is it, Mom, Dad? It's generally like $75,000.
Yeah,
$75,000
that Bale Breaker and Yakima can contribute to this program. But I mean, it's all up in the air right now.
Right.
So, do we even have an idea of how big of an impact COVID-19 is going to have on ales for ALS yet?
Well, we're starting to get some indication because brewers have reached out and said, hey, delay my shipment of hops. We've had a few brewers, not too many so far, but we've had a few brewers, reach out to us and say, hey, God, I really want to be in the program, but it's too uncertain this year. Why don't we not, participate this year, but be sure to invite us next year. So we've had a few brewers do that, and we've quit enrolling brewers at this point, and waiting until see how this goes, and hopefully, when things lift and hopefully business gets back to something that some semblance of normality, then we'll begin to enroll brewers again. But it's definitely going to have an impact. I'd be surprised if we could exceed even 75% of what we did last year.
Yeah.
I'd be kind of surprised.
Are you, I guess, are you able to even, do you anticipate that the program will pick up at some point later this year in some form?
I personally do because brewers come out to us constantly and say, that is our most popular beer of the year. So they enjoy brewing it. They get a lot of patrons will come through their tap rooms and thank them for doing it. So I think once we get, like say, to some semblance of a normal situation, which may be, who knows, maybe even into July or August, I think there will be brewers will step back up and say, yeah, I want to brew that again. I can see
one of the things that's so cool about the program is the hop blend is you get this hot blend free of charge, but the hot blend is completely unique. It's utilizing experimental hops and some of the most sought after hop varieties. And each year it changes. So from a brewer's perspective, it's super fun to be in this program because you get this awesome hop blend for free that you get to play around with. There's no rules on the type of beer that you can brew, the recipe, anything. It's just kind of take this hop, sniff it, make a beer that you think will be cool off it. So here at Bale Breaker, we generally brew an IPA, and we're brewery and hop farm. But we'll generally do like maybe a session IPA or something that can really showcase the hop itself, so you can really pick up what this year's hop is like. And then also a session IPA because it's hot in the summer and it's crushable.
So do you anticipate reopening the program up maybe at some point and taking more people into the program? Or is it sort of like you'd said, wait to see how things sort of settle out later this year?
Well, I think, at this point, everybody in any business is waiting to see how things play out. A big part of the Ales for ALS program and in each brewery around the country is the awareness piece. That by brewing it brings this disease to the forefront. People in those communities that have a family member currently suffering from ALS, or maybe had a family member who passed away, love to come and they feel a camaraderie. They feel it gives at the brewery level in that community an opportunity for perhaps a family to connect with ALS TDI and then be able to avail themselves of those resources. And so a part of the program is the hope that we can bring to a community, to families in that community that are suffering from ALS. So I guess my answer would be yes. I hope that in a few months that breweries will take possession of the hops, that they'll brew the beer and donate maybe what they can. We recognize it won't be at the level that maybe for some of the breweries that we had hoped for, but maybe they can celebrate in their communities being able to have their tap rooms reopened and invite people in. And so the awareness piece that's really important about the program still will be shared later this summer or in fall.
Are you guys looking at any alternative ways of raising money for the program in the interim?
We aren't. We're both on the board of ALS TDI, and we had a board meeting yesterday, electronically held, and it's having a huge impact on the institute. Right? They are very efficient. They have, like, in a normal operating environment for them, their budget would be maybe $12 to $13 million is all. But they have between 20 and 25 full-time scientists on staff, so they're really lean. But they've had to relocate their lab space, so we have to move out of Cambridge. It's a great hub for biotech firms. It's a super spot to be, but it's really expensive. So we're relocating the lab. We've had to furlough, unfortunately, about 40% of the scientists that were helping, have been working on the cure or treatment. We had a drug that was ready to go into phase 2 trials, and we were getting ready to enroll patients in that. Of course, there's no phase 2 trials going on right now, so that's been delayed. The financial piece of it, we needed to raise about $35 or $40 million to do the phase 2 trial. We were going to venture capital firms to do that. We had somebody lined up to do it, and with the financial uncertainty, they've pulled out for right now. And so it's really set the program back. We were quite excited that we might have a reasonable treatment for ALS, which there is none right now, that could have possibly been in patients in another, let's say 18 to 24 months. Not saying that won't happen. I'm certain it will, but it's going to be delayed, unfortunately.
Yeah, from everything I've read on the ALS TDI website, that there's an urgent need right now for funding.
There really is, and so, but they've done a great job. They've figured out ways that they could cut. They could cut here and there, keep the programs alive, making sure they have a big part of the research is wrapped around mice that are engineered to get ALS. And then they test different drug compounds, some that they've developed themselves, other drug compounds that have been developed elsewhere in the world. And they test them on these mice that have got ALS, that have been engineered to get ALS. And then they can see how, effective it is. So they really want to keep their animals alive and keep that program going. So that's still a big part of their focus going forward. And the core science they're able to do. Some of the administrative staff have been furloughed. A few of the scientists have been furloughed for right now, but they've got a good plan to keep the program going. And so hopefully what it'll be is just a delay. Mm-hmm. That's what the plan is.
And the science is definitely not stopped because of this, but it has slowed down.
So for people who are watching, who are in a position to help, what can they do right now?
Well, they could. I mean, if they had a mind to, there's a lot of great causes right now, and more great causes than there are available funds for charity. But to the degree that they wanted to help support ALS research, ALS TDI has, if you go onto their ALS.net website, they've got a donation opportunity there.
Yeah, I think it's ALS.net/donate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that would be helpful. What we're obviously hoping is that the brewing industry gets back up and going
for a lot of reasons.
For all kinds of reasons. And hopefully this is just, we look back at it this time next year and it'll just be a footnote in history.